We're taking a quick look at yet another messaging from the former president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who has delivered yet another clarion call, sounding the warning that the growing discontent in the country, especially among young Nigerians, is due to prolonged maladministration, and it could lead to a revolution. Now, this clarion call comes at a time when Nigeria continues to grapple with unprecedented socio-economic challenges that continues to affect majority of the population. Now, the youth unemployment in Nigeria currently stands at 6.5%, with a significant number of young Nigerians feeling disillusioned and disconnected with the country's economic and political system. All of this, according to former President Olusegun Obasanjo, is a ticking time bomb waiting to unleash a chain of events that could have far-reaching consequences on Nigeria's trajectory. Well, to help us navigate some of the points raised and, of course, what this means for Nigeria going forward, we're joined by public affairs commentator Denyifa Angalapu. Is a research analyst with the Center for Democracy and Development, and he'll be helping us navigate yet another message from Nigeria's former President Olusegun Obasanjo. As always, Mr. Angalapu, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. It's good to see you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Right. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo has built a reputation around always speaking his mind, always being critical of the situation. This book, which was a short one to mark his 88th birthday, I believe, contains some very strong messages as well as critical assessment on the fight against corruption, the state of the economy, and so on and so forth. What do you make of the quality of the message that he's trying to deliver?
I think first off, it is a message that is very timely. On the other hand, people will say, why is this message coming from Obasanjo, who has also ruled this particular country? But for me, I would rather say, well, we don't expect angels to come and speak for us, right? So at every particular point in time, I appreciate the fact that he is still engaging in the government, he is still engaging in the civic process, and for me, that is what it's really necessary. Now, if you look at the messaging, one important key point that he raised is the issue of the youth, and I think that for me was really very apt. Now, if you look at the Nigerian youthful population, right? I mean, all over the world, it is said that population is strength, and there is no way you are going to do a SWOT analysis of Nigeria without saying, oh, the population of Nigeria is a very huge strength. And in fact, when it comes to the population of the youth, it's even a greater strength, because 70% of the Nigerian population is under 30. And I mean, for any good analyst, you will realize that that is a very, very good strength. So we can basically argue that we have a very, energized workforce and all of that. But the question that we often, defer, the question we don't often answer is, how much of a population that is economically disempowered, incapacitated and politically disadvantaged is a strength? Now, that is the situation of the Nigerian youth that Obasanjo brought to bear in that conversation. The Nigerian youthful population is economically disempowered, politically disadvantaged, technically incapacitated, and then structurally, it is marginalized. The voices are also marginalized. So for that kind of a population, it fails to become a strength. It rather becomes a problem. So I think it's very apt, and I think that it's the right thing to do for every leader that has ruled this particular country. When Obasanjo ruled this country, right, was he a perfect leader? I do not think so. But do we think that because he was not a perfect leader, he does not have the right to speak for Nigeria to be better? I do not also think so. I think that it is apt, and I think that it is what should continue, and every meaningful Nigerian should engage in the process for a better country.
And do you think because of the messenger, the message tends to get overshadowed, and that's why we're not paying attention to the quality of the message?
Well, I really think that it is some form of excuse and a distraction to say, because this message has come from Obasanjo, we can actually whittle it down, or we can downplay it. Because this message has come from several other people and it has been ignored. It has come from different protests. It has come from the NSAS, for example. It came from the End Governance campaign. These were messages that were coming from the youth. And they had so many black cards. We are tired, we are hungry, change the democratic dispensation and all of that. These messages have been coming from so many people. So fine, if we say it comes from Obasanjo and you want to downplay it, no problem. What about the several million Nigerians, that have been speaking this same truth, right? So I think that for us, really, it is becoming very important, and the government is actually even responding because it is coming from an Obasanjo. So it is also the weight of the message, but it is not like the message has not been out there. So I think it's the voice now that the government is responding to. Because what I've also seen is that the government has a habit of saying, oh, who is the person speaking? Oh, it's not really important. So for example, the last 2023, rather, when we had our elections, civil society organizations brought out several reports about the elections and all of the issues that concerns the election. The government did not respond as such. But when the EU report came, they responded. They responded, and there were several press statements. So the whole idea was not because they've not received the message before. They are looking for the voice. How important is the voice? So Obasanjo just came to amplify the voices of millions of Nigerians. So it is not as though it is just him. This message it's out there. It's on the street. It's on every office. It's in different offices, and it's in the mouth of almost every reasonable Nigerian.
And what do you make of the response from the federal government? Because he said quite a lot. Case in point, his thoughts on corruption. He said President Muhammadu Buhari was the worst, and with the way things are going under President Ahmed Tinubu, it could get out of control. What do you make of their reaction to it?
Yeah, so I really think that, again, we are jumping the gun. For me, it's really an excuse game, because we know that if you even look at the global corruption index that came out, Nigeria did very badly, right? We just moved by 1 point. And really, this is a country that we all agree that corruption is a major challenge. And when you talk about Buhari, Buhari came on the promise that he was going to fight corruption, and that Jonathan's government was very corrupt. He condoned corruption and all that. And we had the argument of whether or not stealing is corruption or whether stealing is not corruption and all of that. So it came as Mr. Integrity. But we actually did not see so much of fight against corruption in the Buhari's government. We saw corruption skyrocket and all of that. And in fact, in the Tinubu's government, it appears as though the discussion concerning corruption is not even there as such. Right? So it's a very, very big challenge. So I think that the best response to Obasanjo will be reformation, will be, to better the lives of Nigerians, because what he has said, it is simply the truth and our reality at the moment.
And if you take out some of the pointers, because he has quite a lot to say, isn't it? He's quite in tune with, the pulse of the nation, always engaging himself in one form of activity or the other, keeping his ear to the ground and so on and so forth. He talked about wastages in government. He talks about, to quote him, vagabonds leading as traditional rulers, being crowned and things like that. He's basically painting a dystopian picture of Nigeria today. Do you also think that in terms of the messaging, it does count to situate the issues properly, that there are some positives that needed to be highlighted also while criticizing the decay within the system? Do you think he has failed to do that in his message, to balance things out?
Well, you're right. So as a statesman, you look at both sides. You look at both sides of the coin and then see where the government has done well and where the government hasn't, done very well. But there is also this thing about being out of government. So probably Obasanjo will tell you that he's not the government spokesman, really. What he is basically looking for is to look at the challenges and then push the government to work more. Probably, the public relations officers of the government and the media aides of the government should be the ones talking about all of the very, very good things about the government and all of that. But Obasanjo is spot on to say these are the challenges that threatens the country, right? So it is not left for the for the government on the other hand, to simply respond by showing Nigerians what they've typically done, and not just showing Nigerians, things that are not working, but practical things that are working. So, for example, what is happening to the inflation rate? You saw how the inflation rate was going high and all of that, and what the government could do instead of dealing with the production base, and the issues with naira devaluation. What the government did was to do a rebasement of the economy that automatically brought the inflation rate down, basically. But that was some kind of fallacy. That was some mind game. Even the employment figures that you're reading now, remember it was as high as 33%, and the NBS had another form of calculation that brought it almost to 3%, and we're like, how did you get these figures?
Do you think our data is being politically influenced to make the government look good?
That's actually what I think, and that's the situation. Look at the rebasement when people were complaining of inflation. Look at what NBS did with the unemployment rate. So the idea is that we need to see real changes, and Nigerians can feel these changes. So if you tell me that inflation rate is coming down, if I go to the market and I can see it also, automatically people will appreciate it. So for example, all Nigerians can see that no matter how we criticize the government, right, the petrol rate has come down a little, it ticks down a little. I can see that, you can see that. So these are some of the practical things that people want to see. So I think that's actually the way to go. So if you want to shut your critics, it is not to attack them, right? It is not to attack them. And also there have been several attacks by the government on dissenting voices, even of journalists, right? So the whole idea is that if you want to shut your critics, it is not to attack them. It is to ensure that you are making consistent improvements, so that when people come up with counterfacts, they will say, oh, you've not looked at it this way. So for example, the government is now talking about a youth conference. And I'm like, well, let's stop the talk show. We had a national youth policy from 2019 to 2023. There are enough recommendations there that we can quickly implement. We are, as part of our national youth, national security strategy, right? We have a section that deals with youth. So I'm thinking that we already have enough recommendations for the government to work with, and it is simply to go back to these recommendations and make things work. I think the recommendations and the solutions are already out there. It is for the government to pick them and then put them to work.
On the point of a possible revolution, because the population, especially the youthful demographic, are not only less than satisfied with the performance, but they're feeling marginalized. You just talked about the National Youth Conference. How on the money is Obasanjo regarding what may happen? Because we've seen it before in 2020 with the NSAS movement. In August of last year, we've seen it with the End Bad Governance protests. We don't know when the next one is going to come, or if there's going to be another one before or after the National Youth Conference. But what do you make of his warning and how the Tinubu administration is working to not only engage the youth demographic, but also pacify them?
So the thing is, it's actually an inevitable reality if we don't deal with these solutions. So if you look at the Northeast, the Boko Haram situation, if you look at the Northwest, issues of banditry, if you look at the Southeast, issues of IPOB and other autonomous agitators, you realize that all of this we are forewarned. You could basically see the out-of-school children, you could basically see the grievances and all of that. So you could basically tell that this thing is coming. So Obasanjo is not actually calling for chaos. And I watched him, and I liked how he quoted John F. Kennedy in 1962 and said, if you make a peaceful process, difficult to achieve, really, you make a violence inevitable. And that is what he's trying to say. He is forewarning. NSAS has come. Yeah, you curtailed it somehow. We're lucky. And bad governance came. We saw all of the challenges and all of the deaths that come. So for him, really, it is actually getting worse by the day. So let us deal with this thing now that we can deal with it. Remember, the population is also increasing daily and day by day. So what Obasanjo is saying is that first, our security is already overstretched, right, in different directions. We don't want a situation where there will be youth uprising. Let's not forget also, our neighbors are in a military rule. And if you look at these military leaders, whether in Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali, they are mostly young persons. So you can see in a space where the internet is very interconnected, people are drawing inspirations from different parts of the world, different parts of the country, and all of that. So you can see that it is a risk if we do not engage the youth. Let's not forget, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. So let us see how we can begin to engage youth. How do we do that? How do we make that happen? For example, if the educator still was working, how many people will that place employ? If our textile industries were working, how many people will those places employ? If our agricultural space was working, how many people will it employ? Even look at the creative industry. Look at what Nigerian youth are doing with the creative industry. I mean, with very little government support. I understand that we now have a ministry that deals with tourism and the creative industry, right? But before now, it was almost an unregulated space where people just go. But look at in terms of content creation. Look at the amount of money that youth are able to bring to this country. To show you that the Nigerian youths are very resourceful, but the enabling environment is not there. And if you do not engage them positively, you have allowed people to engage them negatively, because there is no middle ground. It is either positive or negative.
So, against the backdrop of this whole revolution talk, right? Some have also made the point to signal Obasanjo as a serial pessimist when it comes to his take on the state of affairs. Did so with the Yar'Adua administration, did so with the Goodluck administration, the Buhari administration, and now the Tinubu administration. What do you think is his motivation about, the commentary he's writing on the state of affairs? Is he motivated by patriotism, or is he motivated by political sentiments?
Yes, so I would think that it is less political and more patriotism, and I will tell you why. Since he left the office, right, and then issues happen in the PDP, right, you can hardly see Obasanjo in any very deep political rally, right? And it's not like he's trying to become the president again, right? And even in the last presidential elections, you saw him receive almost all of the presidential candidates in his house. So, but the whole idea about the fact that he has consistently criticized everyone in government, whether I talk about Jonathan, whether I talk about Buhari, now you're talking about Tinubu, the whole idea is that the question we should be asking ourselves is that, is Nigeria getting better from then till now? So if it didn't get better under Jonathan and it got worse under Buhari, and it's now getting worse perhaps under Tinubu, do you expect him to say it has gotten better just because you want him to balance it? So the whole idea is that I cannot say something is now better when it is not better.
Yeah, but there are also others who would say he should retire gracefully from the public scene. That is what democratically we've seen from the rest of the world, the advanced democracies that we like to copy, whether it's in America, for instance, or in the United Kingdom, who colonized this country. More often than not, past leaders have a way of just fading into, obscurity, where even if they have to comment, it's quite occasional. But Obasanjo seems to be quite hands-on with his everyday commentary, isn't it? Do you think that that's helpful?
I think, yes, it is very, very helpful. And I will encourage every other past president and head of state to do the same. Nigeria needs that push. We are having this conversation today not because this conversation has not been out there. It is because Obasanjo made a comment. If perhaps a Goodluck Jonathan makes a comment, we will also be having a conversation. So we need that push. The whole idea is that the Nigerian civic space is shrinking so much. So the whole idea is that if Obasanjo does not talk about it, who else will talk about it? I mean, is it the ordinary Nigerian that's already very afraid, that's afraid to be picked up by security agencies and all that? So we need, people that have some form of equal power balance to talk about this challenge. So imagine that an Obasanjo talks about it, a Buhari comes to talk, and all of the head of state, IBB, and everybody comes to talk about the Nigerian state and tries to bring solutions. People will listen. People listen to other people that have some semblance of authorities like them. If not, you will just be ignored. So that is the point. So the point is that he is helping to amplify the voices of ordinary Nigerians. So if he keeps short, the question is, today, will we be analyzing the state of the nation in terms of these issues?
Some would say he's pushing the first domino. in the quest to disrupt the system. He is, quote unquote, what many would consider an instigator by saying some of these things, because there's so many angry youths, angry groups who are waiting for that, just a little push to actualize what Mr. Obasanjo, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, is saying. Do you also think that there is validity in explaining, his actions in that way?
Well, I actually also do not think so. So, for example, it is true that Nigerian youths are hungry. It is true that when you bring up some comments that are inflammatory, you bring up lots of anger and then make people take actions. It is true, but my concern is whether or not the things he has been saying are the truth. If it is the truth, address them. And then, you know what? If you begin to address these issues 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and it comes to say these things again, the Nigerian youths will arise to say, well, I don't think you are correct. We are better now, right? So you allow the citizens to fight your cause for you. So that's why I'm saying that, you shut down critics with what? With performance. So all of these things are actually not necessary, because you have to shut down critics with performance. So, for example, Obasanjo says, oh, Nigerian youths, you are unemployed and all of that. Take your country into your hands. And there is a structured youth empowerment program, right? So, for example, under Buhari time, you had the Empower that employed quite a lot of people and all of that. Under this government, I've not seen so much of a structured youth program. I mean, there are some stuff here and there. I know the National Directorate of Employment is also doing some stuff and all that. Now, if there's a structured program and it comes out to say, oh, the government has not been doing anything, it will see people that will come to defend the government to say, no, you are not correct. The government is doing this, or you are an instigator. But the point now that I'm saying is that, why is the government defending itself, right? Why don't we have same energy of Nigerians, perhaps divided across two sides, to say, I don't think that this is right. I think that the Tinubu government is doing very well. So the summary of the case is that I don't think it's an instigation. He has said the truth, and whether or not the government likes it or not, the duty of the government at this particular time is to work to correct the errors that that they've been doing, and if they've been going in the right direction, is to strengthen it for Nigerians to see and defend them. Because if he does not say it, somebody else will actually say it, and they say to be forewarned is to be foreharmed.
Some say the idea of publishing these ideas in a book where Nigerians would have to buy and read itself is quite self-serving. That, why not call a press conference, address this issue, so that Nigerians know that there is no way, whether at the back end or the front end, you're gaining from it. I'm not sure if President Obasanjo or former President Olusegun Obasanjo needs the money from the book sales, but do you think it's also a point to be made that if it's about the interests of the nation, for instance, we would have heard possible solutions, not just complaints about how things are not working, because like you did say, he's not reinventing the wheel. All of the things he's saying seems to be re-echoing what people have already been saying, or what people already are experiencing in a day-to-day. Do you find any solutions in this new book by the former president?
Yeah, so there are quite some solutions. So he talked about improving the employment situation in the country. He talked about dealing with the issue of out-of-school children and all of that.
Some would say that's quite generic.
Yeah, it is. So, but the whole idea is that, like I would say, Nigeria itself does not really lack, ideas and solutions. So the media houses have been giving solutions, NGOs have been giving solutions. So when these criticisms come to you, right, you look at the existing solutions, and in fact, you put a technical team together to say, well, I think this is actually the truth. Okay, let's put our house together. Let's sit down and then look for a way to deal with the issues that we have. So really, it is not so much that he has not been given solution. It is so much that Nigerians have not been seeing what the government has been doing. And then again, while the government will say, bear with us, it is just 2 years, bear with us and all of that, the citizens are seeing that government officials are living very large, living very flashy lives, and they cannot really comprehend how they will be suffering so much, and then the government is actually, you know, living flashy lives while telling them to sacrifice. So these are some of the challenges that we have. So for me, really, in summary, it is not the fact that Obasanjo keeps speaking about, you know, national issues. It is the fact that he's amplifying the voices of so many discontented Nigerians, really. That is actually the key issue. And if we want to deal with the key issue, let us go and then deal with, you know, some of the challenges that he has been talking about, so that when he comes to talk about it the next time, it will not be a valid reason to give attention to.
All right, interesting takes there. Let's see where the next chapter would look like. Obviously, we anticipate more commentaries from the former president, who always wants to let Nigerians know about what he's thinking on the state of affairs. Mr. Denyifa Angalapu, as always, a pleasure having you join us on the program. Thank you so much for stopping by this morning. Thank you so much for the analysis. All right.